in the DNA, you can track at least 8 generational, I think it's 8 or more.
Wow.
8 generational traumas, and that get coded in the DNA and get to the next generation.
I didn't experience any of the stuff that was going on in family politics. My parents never introduced me to that. And my life was such that I only had, and I chose to only have friendships and people around me that really feed into me and I can feed into them. And there's no bickering. Because fighting and these sort of things were just, they annoyed me. And I never had it in my life. Maybe that's why it was an annoyance. However, when we create stress in our body, that is when things change within our being. And it gets confused because the end product of stress is accumulating fluid from an inflammatory response. And from that, fluid and electricity start to go into conflict.
Welcome to Awaken Consciousness Podcast.
Welcome to Awaken Consciousness Podcast. Shaman Nova, your host for episode. Blessed and honored to have 2 new guests, 2 of my friends, and 1 new book that we're going to talk about later. For now, welcome Vikas and welcome Ajit, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
It's amazing to have 2 quite interesting minds in terms of exploring health and business and consciousness. And one of the things I've been quite excited is to get self-awareness in our bodies. And because you have an amazing ideas and you know amazing people that have tools that can create this harmony in their body and longevity. And I would like you to please introduce a little bit of yourself and some of these amazing friends you have, like the doctor we just met with all these tools.
Dr. Kobe. Where do I begin? I mean, my journey starts from my childhood. You know, I'm fortunate that I had such a positive childhood and upbringing. Where my parents sheltered me, more my mom sheltered me from anything negative in my life. So I only experienced a lot of positivity. However, looking back now, from later on in life, I realized I had a lot of dysfunctional things within myself, if you want to call it that, at this given time, where I had deficiencies, but I had amazing...
How old were you?
I was, I guess, maybe 5, 6, whenever you start to read at that time.
Okay.
I had a challenge reading. You know, I had a challenge comprehending movies on a screen, following screenplay. And so for me, the thing that I understood most in my life was just to play and to enjoy life. And from this protection of my childhood up until like maybe I was like 18, 19, up until I lived at home, it was just a positive household, you know, where I didn't experience any bickering, maybe my parents a little bit, but that too, that was on their own. I didn't experience any of the stuff that was going on in family politics. My parents never introduced me to that. And my life was such that I only had, and I chose to only have friendships and people around me that really feed into me and I can feed into them. And there's no bickering. Because fighting and these sort of things were just, they annoyed me. And I never had it in my life. Maybe that's why it was an annoyance, you know? And then later on in life, I mean, that being said, amongst like all these other health issues, I mean, I had reading difficulty, as I mentioned, but I had bowel, like my digestive system was all screwed up. I was really anxious as a kid. I got scared. Like my house got broken into, so I got really scared of things, and a lot of fear. But yet positivity didn't really expose those things till later on in life. So those were all traumas, but really I didn't see them as traumas because I had a positive life. I had positive people around me and I had a lot of love. It's only later on in life where, I moved away and then I started to really see the true nature of people. And I don't say that with any judgment. I mean, you can call it human nature, but I don't consider it human nature. But that's
like
my
it's
judgment.
kind of like self-awareness is to start rising, right? It's like something inside of you start becoming self-aware, and you kind of start off like reading patterns around your environment and trying like to understand in your like pure ignorance, because you just come into this world, we can say it, right? You don't know the laws of physics, or what is it, laws of physics? I don't even know, like what the fuck am I? Like that's, some people become self-aware like faster than others.
Right.
I will say like I get like around when I was 14 years old is when I start becoming like more questioning myself. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like,
No,
continue.
I want to hear it.
No, well, let me continue with my G, and then I'm gonna go, bro. Please.
Well, I was thinking about where and how did I become self-aware, and what kind of defined my childhood was changing schools every year, a new school, new friends, new figuring out the social dynamic, and getting to question, who am I showing up as? And I lived in California, and my name is Majid Mogaraban. And in California, if you don't know how to read the name, probably it's Spanish, and the J's are like H's. So they just thought it was Mahid, some Spanish name they'd never heard of, Mahid. And no one heard of Majid Mogaraban. And one year I moved from California to Illinois, and Illinois is a whole different place. And I'm like, all right, Majid's staying in California. Illinois is JJ. J period. Doesn't stand actually for anything. Just sounds really cool. So I entered the 4th grade as JJ. And the people in Carbondale, Illinois who knew me, they knew JJ. They didn't know Majid. I changed to Majid again when I went to university. So this like personal branding and identity and who do I want to be like, this is like, I guess, the beginning of my self-awareness of like, what character am I presenting to the world? One of the interesting definitions of what we think we are is we tend to think that we think we are what other people think we are.
There is a nice quote. I don't know if you haven't actually heard it. It says, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting. We kind of like develop these personalities in our childhood because we're trying to understand our reality. And since the system is built in a way of like ignorance and hiding information versus raising consciousness, like we're trying to do in this podcast, and like expand your wisdom, well, it's quite challenged to survive in a hostile environment. We don't have aka dinosaurs no more, but now we have corporations who are like probably like more predators and like dangerous than, and governments, like mafias.
I think maybe the biggest predator is our mind.
That's for sure.
Because we get programmed and then we're like, holy shit.
We get programmed to get fear.
Yeah, and it's all this fear-based mentality, as to what is our existence and what we've already lived. So it's so confined to this space of a box, which is so tiny compared to having a conscious mind of thinking limitless, thinking infinite, thinking possibilities rather than looking at roadblocks, and when we face more roadblocks, we think of more roadblocks. But when we're in a space of happiness and fun and just enjoying life, there are no roadblocks. So you just go with the flow, and it's amazing in a night what can unfold when it's just, okay, let's just be present. Let's just be here, you know?
It's when I will call it like, at least from my personal experience, when I stop gaslighting myself. Okay, so I wish to be this, but this is my reality. How I can transform it and how I'll live with it. Because we have at the beginning this fear of judgment by our color, by our race, by our finance, or by our family backgrounds, etc. Because human perspective or consciousness perspective, because it even goes through the gods, let's call it like that, right? Or through the self-God, which, because at the end soul is only one. All this bubble. Yeah.
Oh man, this is a journey that we go through in trying to figuring out self, you know, ups, downs, rounds and rounds. And, you know, I can't even believe, like, probably at the age of probably grade 10 or 11, I didn't know how to look people in the eye. And no one ever told me that is a thing. And I started realizing that looking people in the eye is so important in connection. And so all of what we end up being in our life is based on the environment that we exist in. And so if we're ever never told or never experienced something, then we become in a state of perception in this closed way of thinking, right? Because that is all of what we know. Until we go through other experiences to change that perspective and give us a different perspective on how life's outlook is, or our outlook on life.
Yeah. For
I
example,
don't know if you guys followed me on that.
I do. You actually, who are like more than us, at least yet, exposed to the marketing, digital marketing, you know, and how to like get those places, get those groups, get those community, or build those communities into like this self-awareness journey. It's also like quite a challenge because there's a lot of people who don't want to wake up. Even like the information is there, bro, like you just don't want to wake up because you just don't want to.
It's too much work. It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of discipline.
Yeah. You know, to show up every day with certain value structure that you don't compromise, that you live by every day, or you're trying to make a better change in your life every day, you know, consciously observing how we're showing up to others every day, to our children, to our parents, to our loved ones, to our staff, to our team members, to anyone we meet. You know, can I share a story?
Of course.
That just happened the other day. I was on my way out to meet this company in Gatineau. And I went in my, it was a nice day, so I was like, I'll jump in my sports car. And I got to the gas station I needed to fill up. And I was like, I'm going to get some water. And there was this girl filling up her car. It was a BMW. And I was like, oh, I was checking it out. But she seemed a little scattered. Okay. So I go in. That was when I was pulling up, but then I go in to get my bottle of water and she's there and she's next to pay. And then she dumps all this change on the counter. And then the girl behind the counter, she's an Indian immigrant, okay? And yeah, I mean, I can make not judgments but generalizations because I'm Indian. It's just how and especially girls, it's harder with girls and guys because that expectation is so much higher. And then on how you serve in our culture. And then so she said she dumps the change and the girl behind the counter says, I can't accept change. My manager doesn't allow it. And I was kind of surprised by that. But then she goes on to say that she got all mad. This girl, you know, that's all I have. And, you know, I can't pay any other way. I don't have a credit card or anything. And then she's like, your customer service sucks. Can I talk to your manager and can I kind of deal with this? And then I noticed this was getting a little kind of escalated, pointing fingers. So I was like, you know what? I'll pay that amount and we'll figure out the change. Don't worry about it. And then she was so nice and thankful for me doing that. And I'm like, that's okay. I'll take care of this just to save each other the pointing fingers.
I just want to
and
pay. I
stabbing.
go home.
Yeah. and then this girl, she left, and then she comes back, and then she starts like going at her, like saying, "Oh, I told you it was 91 octane, whatever." And then I turned to her and I said, "But there is a way of conduct on how you can speak to someone. The tone of voice and how you can speak to someone is your choice."
Yeah, I did too.
And she looked at me and she said, "I'm so sorry." And she looked at the girl and she said, "I'm so sorry for talking to you that way. And I shouldn't have talked to you that way." And then she was so thankful for all of what happened. And then this girl, she started crying. And she was like, "My customer service, like, you can ask my manager." And she took it to heart. On how our words can impact people, how we show up every day, how we communicate. And then in the end, what ended up happening, which is quite funny, how it all ends and how this universe just brings us just such amusement, is that I go to pay and she rings it and she only put $4.25 for the bottle of water. She didn't put the $20. And I was like, "Hey, you didn't charge me for the gas." And she said, "Well, it's okay. I'll just take the change. It's okay. Don't worry about it." And then I go out, and the girl still hasn't left, and she looks at me, and she does the prayer sign with her hands, and she's like, "Thank you."
Namaste.
And I was like, all I did was facilitate. You paid for your gas. Everything got resolved, and we're all good. It's just if we could change our conduct on how we behave or how we treat each other on this earth, we can make a big difference. And just immediately, I was just able to just call her on it. And it changed the whole scene. And that's what energy can do. And it shifts because deep down inside, we are good people. It's just from our shit of life and our confines of our mind.
It's a hostile mind.
Yeah.
Because we're born, unfortunately, in a hostile environment, right? So our mind gets shaped by hostility. And depending, like, the country you're born is more hostile. Like, I come from Nicaragua, it's a different type. Here is a different type. India is different type. Like, bro, where you from again?
California.
Yeah. So there is a different part. And each environment will kind of like put you to your own limits, right? Like, most you can handle. And then after that, like, how to take that handle with wisdom and grow from there, or just like says like, "Oh, my life is shit because of this happened," or my dad
self-pity.
Yeah, my dad was hit me, and my grandfather was hitting my dad, and it was generational trauma. And technically, I think I was reading watching in YouTube one of these days that there is generational traumas in the DNA. You can track at least 8 generational. I think it's 8 or more.
Wow.
8 generational traumas, and that get coded in the DNA and get to the next generation. I'm one of them, for example. I mean, my mom have scoliosis, and I have scoliosis too, And I've been work way more than her in terms of like education, at least for myself, how to manage at least my disease or illness. Dysfunction.
Yeah.
And trying like to like keep it like the most straight possible, right? Like to get better from my health. And I'm actually like working that with how do you call it, like the one for like
that posture.
Yeah,
You ordered it?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it will come soon.
Yeah, because I mean, it's awareness. Also, our brain and our spinal cord has amazing capabilities. And in literature, you can find that if you were to put it in its most ideal medium, it won't age. However, when we create stress in our body, that is when things change within our being. And it gets confused because the end product of stress is accumulating fluid from an inflammatory response. And from that, fluid and electricity start to go into conflict. And that's not the ideal medium for our nervous system, which is electrical.
It's like kind of like this is story. It's kind of like related. When I moved to this house, I get it like a year and a half ago, and the power was like extremely high. I was like, bro, this house is not that old. It's like built in the 1990s, something like that. It's impossible, and the air conditioner it was new, so it was impossible like this so high. So, I bring a electrician. Well, I didn't bring this electrician. Like the landlord sent this electrician, and he checked, and he's like, "It looks good." But look at the fucking bill, bro. Doesn't look good.
Something's not adding up here.
Yeah. And then we bring a guy to check the air conditioning, and he finds out that the air conditioning was cooling and the house was heating at the same time. So the house like, should I supposed to heat? No. Should I supposed to to get colder? And like, no, it's just like both at the same time. It's like it was competing, and my bill was going crazy.
Well, that is what happens in the nervous system. It starts getting stressed. Like, is it here or is it there? That's our autonomic nervous system, which is our fight or flight. If someone comes to approach you and he's like, "Listen, asshole, this and that is about to beat the shit out of you," you're like, "Okay, can I handle this guy, or can I bounce and get the hell out of here?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And which one should I choose?
It's like, do you want some money?
Yeah, so then we stay in a calm state and try to figure it out, right? But when we're in that state for a high period of time, then we get confused and we go into a freeze state. We don't know if we should go or stay. And that's where the mind starts playing games, right?
It's like these freeze states. Have you never got these dreams that you wake up and you cannot move? And you're just like there, and you're fucking paralyzed, and I'm like, what the fuck?
You can't move when you
can't
wake
move.
up?
I mean, like, you're dreaming. It's not in real life, but you kind of like wake up in the dream, and you cannot move.
Right.
And you're trying to move, and you feel like so heavy, and then you're paralyzed. And usually it happens when you are like in extremely stress or extremely fear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people I don't dream. Like, I have very rare dreams. And for those that I can remember in my life, and people are like, that's not possible. But, like, I sleep deep. I have no problem sleeping. Like, I could fall asleep on this hardwood floor. So...
Or maybe you do, but you don't remember.
Yes.
No, well, probably. I know I have dreams, and within minutes I'm forgetting almost all of it. It kind of fades very quickly, and then I couldn't tell you what the dream was about. But I remember being very, very much aware of all the things that are happening. And then I wake up and go, oh, that was a dream. Very interesting. So many elements. And then they're just kind of vanishing very quickly from my ability to recall it.
So you guys are telling me basically what everyone's told in my life.
I will say like the lucid dreams are like the most real. I don't know how real your dreams has been, but my dreams, I've been able to smell like a particular smells. For example, my dad, before he passed away, he used to drink, but he take care of himself too. So he have like kind of like he smells between liquor and a particular perfume that only he knows, and he particularly like smells of the body. So it's a very, very unique smell, right? And when you hug somebody, for example, which it's your daughter, it's your wife, is whoever that you know very often that you hug it, you know their body, like how it feels. Even if you with the closed eyes, you know, oh, this is my mom, you know, this is my daughter, whatever. Mm-hmm. My dad, when he passed away, we have a great relationship, but I was upset because he didn't say, I'm going to die, because he knew he was going to die. I understand if it was an accident, I'm not going to be upset with him. But he knew, and the motherfucker didn't tell me we were supposed to be best friends. And I was upset and I told him, like, you didn't say goodbye. And then I think it was like three days later, I remember I was, at the time probably was 27, no, more maybe, less, 23. And I wake up like I'm 7. I'm in the environment of I'm 7, but still with my body of 23. So I wake up in the dream. The environment is like the house of my dad in the living room. That he usually like put me there when his rooms was not available. So he put me in the living room, put a couch, mattress. And yeah, I'm in that environment that I was when I was 7 years old and staying in his house because I used to live with my mom. So I go and stay in his house sometimes and he put me there. Anyways, that house was demolished and then they built another house, you know, and then he passed away. But I wake up there. That's the point. But I wake up with a 23 years old body. So I'm like, something is not right here. And then I saw the patio doors that opens like that. And then I see the silhouette of my dad coming in. And then I'm like, he look at me, kind of like the light, you know, like take the shadow away. He look at me to the eyes and he's like, don't cry. And I just like stand up from that mattress, go hug him. And Brandon, when I hug him, I feel his body. I feel his smell. I saw him. Like, more real than that, bro, is this. You know? This is happening for me right now, and that was happening for real. And I started crying in that moment because it's like, it's unbelievable. What's happening? And I wake up crying. So self-perception just go into these lucid dreams. And you can stay conscious in those and what you call it, these dreams. Because this is another dream, right? This is, you call it reality. We call it reality. But it's just another dream of the mind.
But then I'm in a dream all the time.
Of course. Of course. And this is like how you want to dream it, right? Like how you want to play it. How you want to dance in the dream. You know, like if you want to add some type of a grain of sand to this universe to make it better, you know, to make it more compassionate, to make it more harmonious, to make it more beautiful. And this is why we create this podcast. This is why I have beautiful friends and also content creators like you guys. So actually, I don't know, both of you are like so interesting. I want you to start with the part of, I forgot the name, being honest. The machine of your friend that was having in the
PEMF. It's based on electromagnetic frequency. And so what it's doing is it's resonating. It's a coil, and it resonates at a certain frequency of energy, which is then going out and hitting different elements on this earth, which is then creating another resonance of energy. And so that is what you felt in that room. And so she can set it to various settings. I don't really know a whole lot about this technology. But, I mean, I've engaged in having marijuana, obviously, and mushrooms. And that gave me the same vibration as if I had taken some mushroom. I felt the connectivity of everyone in the room.
Have you know about this machine?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna show you like later how it looks. But it's amazing because it kind of like changed the particles of the water. Have you seen these experiments of how to change the particles of the water?
No.
Okay, so you add different vibrations to the water, and depending on the vibration you add, it will show a different shape. It could be a pentagon, it could be an ectatron, it could be a, you know, like different shapes, kind of like that. When you put like a water and put it in cold, like at the snow, you know how it makes those beautiful shapes.
Yeah.
So, and depending the frequency is depending the shape it's gonna have. And if you see it like from a self-awareness perspective, it's not that like impossible to actually like happening, because it's kind of like nature flows naturally. It's like, you know, in a spiral, and it's creating shapes, and these shapes become self-aware, and then do it again, and it's like the eternal spiral of life.
They've done a study on that where they present different words or different music depending on if it's positive or negative. Like if they put like heavy metal, for example, in terms of different variances of sounds, or they'll put on like symphony or Beethoven, or they'll put kind words and they'll put negative words, harmful words, and it'll denature the property of the water. Exactly this in terms of the crystalline structure of it. It's wild.
This is not the experiment of the Japanese doctor.
Yes, and he took the water from the local river, which is really pure, but then he took water from like a swamp, and he proved that if you took water from a swamp and still gave it love and compassion and sending it good vibration, well then it can actually create beautiful structures out of it, and that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. And everything that we do, it's about, I would say, like connecting, right? Like connecting with people, connected with consciousness, connected with our environment. This is why you write this book, how to 5 steps to grow your business with public speaking, and how it help you to have communication and connection with your audience. Tell us more about this, please.
Sure. You want, excuse me. Do you want to keep it on like awakening consciousness as it pertains to communication, or what would you like to explore there?
I would like to explore first, help humanity to awake their consciousness.
Yeah.
In terms of like how to be more self-aware and responsible and disciplined of your life, of your behaviors, of your perspectives.
Yeah.
That's my first goal. And after that, create a community that is also pay, and I can create like special contact for that community, connection, and the special talk conversation to actually speak to my audience, or like speaking one-on-one, or help them to coach them, in consciousness, in business, in health, and because there's a lot of beautiful guests that as you guys are going to have in this podcast, and each of us, we're just going to add something in somebody else's life, and then we'll create business between all of us, like in your clinic, in your content creation, my podcast, etc. It's like helping each other, everybody.
I'll be happy to share with you how I'm helping people awaken their consciousness through the public speaking work.
Yes.
So this communication, we're really dealing with words, and we're dealing with minds, we're dealing with psychology, we're dealing with other people who don't always think and speak the exact same way we do. Then we're also looking at how do we see ourselves in our business, and how are we trying to communicate that. So we're actually going to the question, who am I? How do I want to present myself? And under that, we can say, what am I? And really decide like how you want to be. And from there, you have the power to explain in your own mind what the story of your past is. And you also have the ability to articulate your vision of the future. We're always here now. And so this past and this future, they exist in your mind, and they exist as words, as a story. So one of the technologies or innovations of the mind that I've been exposed to is the fact that we can change the past and change the future. It's not so out of the ordinary to consider we can change the future, because the future sort of doesn't exist but only in our mind. But the past, it's like, it's concrete, it happened. But did it? Or is it just a story? And your way to communicate the story to yourself can be very healing, to change the story of what your past is, if it was traumatic in some way. You can speak this your past in a way that shares wisdom and teaches, which is a lot of what I do. Is I'm helping experts communicate their wisdom in a way that generates clients and income for their business. So we can talk about how words help people make a buying decision. But our story of ourselves and who we are is a way of communicating to ourselves and to others what our interpretation is of our past, right? And we can change that. and we can improve that. We can make that more valuable, and we can make that more empowering for ourselves. And we can empower ourselves and who we're becoming by telling the story of who we are now and who we're being in the future. And when you're selling yourself and your personal brand, and people are saying, I want to follow you, I want to buy from you, I want to work with you, I want to be on your podcast, I want to join your party. That's your ability to communicate a compelling future that people are attracted to.
Yeah.
When it comes to business, we're communicating about the problem that you have that we've learned a lot about and determined how to solve, and presenting a solution to you if you want to solve that problem. And they can determine if they want to work with you and your company at this price, and determine if they want to work with you.
Yeah.
But the ability to communicate that, turns out, is one of the most important things in business, because you can be really good at whatever it is you do, but it's based on your ability to communicate it to other people that you can actually earn the right to help people.
Yeah.
So being able to communicate the message, the marketing message, the sales message, the value, the story, the emotional connection, the trust, all of that comes from the words that you choose that are some story about your own past, present, future, or your company's past, present, and future, or your prospect, your client, or your person you want to build a community with, their past, their present, their future. So I've been able to help my clients build audiences and build products that sell and sell their services. And all of this comes down to communication, choosing the words. And the consciousness, where consciousness comes in, is you can consider communication, like word selection or interpretation of words, as a mindfulness practice. When you're mindful about the words that you're experiencing and learning from, or that you're finding and communicating with, it's a mindfulness practice, and it can change your reality and can change the results around you in this reality when you change the words that you use.
Of course, because that's, even if you're a believer or not believer in terms of religion, there is a reality, which is like the words is the powers of reality. It's like, let there be light, used to say. This is a famous quote of God, in terms of like the first vibration create the particle of light and the particle of life and the particle of self-awareness. And this is like where we all are right now. This is actually like a very interesting way to also like talk to your environment, like if you see it from a way of like, okay, I'm a co-creator with this God, if you're a believer of God, or with this universe, if you are, or just like by existing, and since I exist, I want to create or help co-create this environment in a more harmonious way. Like changing the way you approach to this, change your result. And I've been learning a lot, for example, coming from Nicaragua to Canada, because Canada, it's more polite in the way you approach. Sometimes it goes a little hypocrite, and I don't like that. But, like it's more smooth, I would call it, like the approach is more polite. And that helped me to connect with more people and to reach more people too at the same time. Because it's not that your message is wrong or that your message is hurtful. It's the way you say it. It's the way you deliver it. Like sometimes people is not ready to have so much love,
Well, I mean, so this happened, another experience just a couple days ago. I was walking my dog, and I ran into my neighbor. She's gone through cancer twice now and cancer treatments. Has 3 kids, has a husband, is quite confined to kind of her beliefs of herself in her childhood and what she was made to believe kind of in her upbringing. So she's really hard on herself and confined to her mind. And the other day we were just talking about how I left the garage, and my mantra for that morning was let go of control, right? Because control is something that we hold in our mind. However, if we just allow for the universe to unfold in continuing to consciously do good and service in this world and moving towards your purpose, things work out in their own magical way, as long as we keep on doing the doing. So her conversation with me was, yes, control came up in this conversation. And I said, control is such a bad word and a negative way of treating self. And guilt was the other word she used, right? Guilt of putting herself first, rather she puts her kids first before herself. And she feels guilty if she puts herself first. And I said, well, in my mind, I was just thinking, well, then you'll just remain stuck. You have to change the way that you treat yourself. The words that we use for ourselves. It's very important on that language and exactly what you're saying, because those put out energy into this universe, and it also creates self-beliefs. So thank you for sharing the word excited.
Oh, yes.
Before we started today, because that is such an amazing word, and that hits me all the time, because that is what I mostly exist as.
Excited.
as excitement.
Well, we were talking about mushroom experiences and retreat experiences where you have multiple days and you're thinking about what are we eating and where are we sleeping and are we dancing and what kind of stuff are we doing. So imagine this. You're invited to a retreat at a magic mansion called the Hero's Journey. It involves mushrooms, and it involves understanding and exploring your journey as a hero in your story. And you're aware of the hero's dose, terminology for high dose, 5 grams of mushrooms, which might send you on a real journey. But imagine you came to explore the story of your life and create the story of your life, past, present, and future, with the aid of the teacher plant, the mushrooms. And so I think, as they say, set and setting, creating a space, choosing a space that puts you in the mindset. I have a whole story about this magic mansion, that it transforms you into your highest self when you cross the barrier, the threshold. And we have this huge mirror that we now refer to as the mirror of the highest self. So when you're looking into it, you're seeing your highest self, and you get to consider, what would your highest self say to others or to yourself? How would your highest self stand or breathe or be? And so with mushrooms, you can really tap into those past, presents, and futures and really explore that. So that's the Hero's Journey Mushroom Retreat description.
I love it.
What do you love the most about it?
That's fantastic. You go through the process, and then at the end, it's your commitment. And this is what we were just talking about, is that we're looking ourselves in the face and committing to self as to what is it that we want to live. Like, what truth do we want to live? We all live in an existence of what and how we exist today. But we also know that we have work to do, because there's an existence that we want to live as. And if anybody were to say that there is no space for that, then they would be perfect. They would be God, right? And that
no space
difference,
for what?
that space of improving themselves. Either they're full of shit, they're heavy in their ego, and they're like,
gaslighting.
I know it all.
He does the gaslighting.
Right? Or I'm and I'm it, right? Because it is the all-knowing and has lived through everything. And yet, if we exist and we think we are perfect, then we'll get a rude awakening. And so hopefully we don't have to come to that point, and we say, okay, this is how far I am from that space. I don't need to measure it, but yet I need to do my work every day to shorten that gap, to get closer to that space.
Meaningful progress is indeed satisfying.
Yes.
I found it really useful to understand for the first time, what am I? When I'm talking about myself. And I think you can choose to believe whatever you wish and whatever you find most functional, but this really interests me. To say, I hear myself talking, and I also have a name. My parents call me Majid, But am I Majid, or am I this person talking, or am I the person talking about this person talking, this voice of my mind? And so what I've chosen to believe is this. I'm not my body. I have a body. I'm not my mind. I have a mind. And what I did once is named my mind Sherlock, after Sherlock Holmes, the famous. And so so Majid, this is Majid. I'm Majid. Majid has a mind called Sherlock. And I can even have a conversation with Sherlock, like, hey, mind, why are you doing that? Why are you thinking like that? And so the awareness that I'm not even my own thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my mind. I'm not my body. That's a functional awareness for me to consider if I'm like, contemplating consciousness and my existence. But it does leave the question, what am I then if I'm not all those things? And what I like to believe is that I am the whole universe experiencing itself through a Majid, through this body and through this mind. And that, therefore, also everything else is also me somehow. Which sometimes looks like it's a reflection of me, or it's a projection of me, or it's my thoughts creating a story about this thing, which is effectively me. And every relationship I even have is a relationship I have with me, about how I feel about myself when I'm experiencing this relationship. So the what am I conversation with myself is an interesting one, and useful to consider, like meaning and presence and awareness, and this conversation I'm having about what I am this, and I am tired, and I am looking forward to seeing you. And so yeah, I am everything, I am the universe is a useful application to this idea that it's experiencing itself through me.
Have you heard the theory of the egg?
I don't think so.
Have you?
No.
The theory of the egg says the universe itself is an egg.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just there, existing by default, by itself. And inside of that egg is life. And rather than create a chicken, as we know mostly, can create a whole spectrum of life, a whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
And universe inside of that universe. So you make it like infinite possibilities. It's like today you didn't decide to bring a black shirt and you bring a red shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And you decide to bring white, not
Mm-hmm.
blue. And just because of that, probably this conversation goes completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never mentioned that, or if I mention it different.
Mm-hmm.
And the results always change your future.
It's wild. Lately, I've been looking at numbers. I've never looked at numbers. People talk about numerology and all of this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. There's something about it. Lately, numbers have been just showing up, like left, right, and center. So I'm going on a trip on Sunday. I shared my credit card information with my girlfriend in Grenada, and I gave her my security code. And I gave her my credit card info and whatever, and she's like, no way. The security code number is the area code of Grenada. What are the chances of that?
And what do you make that mean?
I don't make it to mean anything but the fact that if I can be aware of this happening, then more of these coincidences that occur in my life, to be aware of them more and more, that something is on the right track. I don't go too deep into the reasoning why any of this is happening. I just know that if it's happening, I'm on point.
Yeah.
Or if I'm getting messages like earlier today, right? By text and saying, hey, I was just thinking about you just the other day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, or if I think of one of my patients and then they show up in my schedule that I haven't seen in like a year. And I was just thinking about them 2 days ago. So what is this? And for those that don't believe in this stuff in occurring, then I must be just dreaming up this stuff, or I might be in a dream, or it is my reality. And so when I see these coincidences happening, it's just wild. I went to Vancouver. I go to the McDonald's. I grab a coffee. And you know, it puts your number in line on the coffee thing, and you get a ticket as well for your number. I get 130. I'm like, oh, interesting. I'll take that to my brother because he's born on April 13th. Next day I go back, and my number is 103. And I was like, that is also interesting. I'll take that back to my bro. A week and a half later, I go to the McDonald's on Bronson, and I go to get a coffee. You know what the number was? 130. And it was a different city and a week and a half later. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, coincidence? That's pretty crazy. So I took a picture of it and I sent it to my brother. I go to Colombia. I go to the second, my best friend and I, we rent a condo. There's a keypad to get the key out of the front gate. We go to the second floor. He gives me the number. Verbally, he's like, this is the code, and I laugh out loud for the digital lock. And I laugh out loud. I'm like, bro, I'll never forget that number. And it was 2310, and that's the address of my clinic.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Bro,
Yeah.
by the way, like we should tell like these viewers more about your clinic, like what you guys offer, and I'm super happy like it has been like successful lately. And like, you know, like growing in the universe, like kind of like connecting with that healing part of like.
Yeah, so it's amazing. We're coming full circle from where I started of all of my dysfunction, but I'm probably at my most lean and healthiest shape I've ever been at. And it's a journey of just trying to figure out the body. So in that process, when I was going through that stuff when I was younger, I wanted to become a medical doctor initially. But then at the age of 14, I stopped taking all meds, and I said, I just want to do this naturally and listen to my body. So in grade 11, I had the mindset that I want to change this healthcare system with the mindset of going into medicine, not knowing that there are other healthcare professions. And then second year university in kinesiology, I came to learn about chiropractic, which is essentially the same degree without the medicinal part of it, okay? Like the pharmaceutical aspect, and it's more of a natural aspect of how we look at the body. So it's an art, science, and a philosophy. So I started my practice 21 years ago, and now it's evolved. As we all evolve, we have to evolve. If you don't evolve your business, you don't evolve yourself in terms of your thinking and how you do things, you'll be stuck. And you'll be fucked. In a lack of a better word, you know what I mean? And so you have to keep on evolving. And over a period of time, I've had different mindsets of how I look at the body and what we've been taught in school and different courses that I've taken. But I've come to a place of what I now believe is the basis of illness and disease and the decline of the human body. And if we can keep this in check, then we can actually increase the lifespan of the human body, okay? Not just thinking that we can only live to 100 even, if people even have that mindset, you know?
Maybe now, because we got also the technology.
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. And so inflammation is the number one problem in our body. And if we continue to be in a stressful state, it creates inflammation. If we're eating shitty food, it's creating inflammation. If we're moving in patterns that our body or our nervous system doesn't understand, it's not speaking the language, it creates inflammation. So ultimately, we're setting ourselves up for a shitty later on in life. The ending of life is not looking so great. And then we're looking at, okay, most common replacements in the body are hip replacements and knee replacements. 1 year after retirement, if people are living a sedentary lifestyle, there's a staggering high percentage of death of people. So, I mean, that's not the kind of later on life I want to live. I want to just go, but I want to live a full life and a long life. So in my own experience, inflammation has really screwed up my body, but Can I say screwed up that it's taken me through a journey of learning what it is, and now I feel amazing? So it's all perspective at any given time, at any given place when we go through our journey of life, right?
Yeah.
And so at this given time, looking at inflammation, so again, creating calm to the autonomic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response. So meditation is fantastic, breathing, all the things that we should be doing, which don't take a whole lot of time, but really give love and caring to self. So calming that system, developed a movement patterning of how the nervous system understands different movements of the body based on size and hierarchy of muscles and the nervous system. So I've created a patterning system for that, which I'm still evolving and learning. I'm not back to when I was like 15, 20 years old, so when I get to there, then I'll have more of a better idea, but I have a pretty damn good idea right now.
Pretty good idea of what?
Of this patterning of how the brain understands movement. And the way that we function today, it's not a proper pattern movement that the brain understands. So it declines over a period of time. We have to feed it food for it to output better.
Feed the brain?
Yeah. So not just figuratively like food, but what food is to the brain is information. So the nervous system is a input-output system, plainly put. Okay, my brain thinks simple, and that is what the nervous system is. So if we give it good, healthy input in a language that it understands, its output is better. So more of its map lights up so that it can output to its maximum. Does that make sense? So these pattern movements are set in a way of information or proprioception to the brain so that it can output better. And then when it's receiving that information, it calms the autonomic nervous system, the stress center. But when it's not receiving that information, sirens are going off, it's stressing the stress center, right? Alarm bells, I'm not getting the proper information. This body's not moving right, whatever it is. And then it creates inflammation, right? And then we feed it all this crappy food over a period of time, right? With fried foods, which are, I think, out of all the things that I've consumed in my body, the things that created most inflammation are fried foods. Fried foods are like...
Oils too.
Yeah, heated oils.
Like particularly, I think,
Yes.
olive oil.
Like if it's heated, it's not good for us.
Yeah.
So heated oils are
It's,
not
it's
good
better
for
at
us.
coconut oil for heated.
Yeah, well, avocado oil can go really high without it denaturing. And so oils, so fried stuff, next to that I would put sugar. It creates high inflammation in our body, and dairy. And then the next to that is wheat and corn. These are highly inflammatory. And what a lot of people don't understand is that we have a third nervous system. So we have our central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord. Then we have our autonomic nervous system, which is our stress center. And then we have our third nervous system, which is the enteric nervous system, which is our gut. So if we're not feeding it properly, and we're creating inflammation in there also from the stress centers, then what's happening there is we're not accessing our consciousness. Because our gut feeling is our consciousness. That is what we're being told. And that is what we're being taught.
It's like your nature.
Yes, it's what we feel from inside, that gut feeling, and it's the enteric nervous system.
That's why your friend asked me about if I get engaged sometimes with the suffering of people, the suffering of my environment. Because when you suffer, it's like it goes here,
Yes. And with my patients, when I feel their stomach, and it's tight, I ask them, do you have a hard time sharing things with people? And they say yes. They have a hard time expressing and also sharing.
I think this is why people like you write these books, because, like this lack of communication, this like this fear of being rejected, because this is one of the most common, I would say, like feelings, right? The rejection. Okay, I don't want to approach because I can be rejected, or I could get hurt, so you're afraid. Then you never know what's gonna happen, and maybe the environment is completely chill. It's completely like ready and welcoming you to come, but you don't go.
If we're ready, you know what I mean? It will be harsh if we're not ready.
It's like it's like this podcast is to the viewers right now, because they're ready to see this. It was never built. Like we literally had just like building it right now. It's just happening for them, for us, because we're all learning here. Like this is like one of the first episodes, and it's the most beautiful part because it's like the beginnings. It's the excitement. It's like the uncertainty. It's like the, I don't know, like the patterns that you're seeing, like where you want to take it, like how much value you can add to the world, like how these values will transform and come back. Because this is why the more you give is the most you come back, because all come back all the time.
All the time, but we have to be humble, because where we are and what we are in this universe is just a speck of nothing, relatively speaking. Our importance really to the universe is,
Yeah, he was a good guy.
I have something to share with you guys that I think you'll find interesting. And what made me think of it was when you said that you ask people, do you have a hard time sharing when you're feeling like a tight stomach? And I work with a lot of people who have things that they want to say, but they're maybe afraid to say it because they're afraid how people are going to respond to it, either with criticism or judgment or abandonment or skepticism. And for some people, you can understand, like, they don't feel safe to speak, or they don't feel safe to speak their truth or tell their story. And so sometimes the words can get stuck. And so I had this woman work with me. Her name is Cheryl, and she's the throat chakra shaman. And she's specialized in throat chakra. And I don't know all the chakras, what they're all called. Apparently there's a throat chakra, and it's for speaking your truth and living your purpose. And when it's stuck, your voice is kind of blocked, and you sometimes even get neck pain, like physical pain around the area. And so she's able to like connect to her clients and connect to their throat chakra and see it even from a distance. And I said, really? Prove it. Show me. I want to have a look at my throat chakra. And so she kind of closes her eyes, and she starts crying, and she's like, oh my God, I've never seen one like this. She said, it's so blue and it's so expansive. It's like pure blue and pure expansive. I'm like, okay, well, throat chakra shaman is doing a throat chakra reading on me. And she's like, it's so open, and you're just so powerful in how you can speak. And so, as you know, my business is speaking and helping other people speak and helping other people tell their story. So, I'm letting those, I'm connecting the dots. Okay. And so, so I thought you guys might find it very interesting, this idea that your voice and your words is also connected to your purpose and your truth and your feeling of safety in the world to be honest and be authentic and speak. And so you would see these sort of manifestations in the body. If like people can't speak, you can see it kind of manifested in the body. And I'm sure in your work you can see this people's blocked voice sometimes.
I think like, I don't think actually, I know somehow, because the only thing I know is this like physics or this reality that we understand it as life, in our spectrum. Everything manifests in the body. All disease, all mental illness manifests as tumors, cancers, flus. Like depending how bad you are, like inside, it will manifest outside. And there's like a correlation with most of cultures in the world or religions in the world. They all share this as within, so without.
I have a theory on it.
And even if you just say it, say your theory.
Mm-hmm.
So emotions deposit themselves in the weakest areas of the body. So if we can come to a place of removing waste in our body, then there'll be no weakness for it to exist. So then we just exist. See, when we're happy and we're having fun, trauma doesn't exist. And we let go of it all. But then when darkness comes, we see it all.
It's a perspective too, right? Because cancer can come to you, as your friend told me on me. She was doing kind of like a reading on me. And when she got tears, she's like, I just see rainbows. Remember? And then that cancer cannot live in your body, she said. So because your body, it's so like that energy is like so high, when cancer comes or this low vibration of energy comes to trying to connect with your body, they just can't get in. They just die in the process. You know,
when we are closed, we become rigid. This is again our autonomic nervous system. And when we're in that state of stress, the whole body closes down.
But
and if it closes down, it can't flow.
You know who do that? The system. The system built it this way, right? You, me, him, like whoever. We're born in a cage. Who have this religion, this political party going on. This is the system. It's about money and and this is how it works. And then you're just born here, without you actually like knowing. You're just like born in a cage, and it's in a mental cage. Not only like the physical cage that we live, but the mental cage. So it's controlled by some particularly like triggers, you know, which is fear for, I don't know, for not falling in love, fear for death, fear for that, you know, and then in order to avoid those fears, you have to do this and you have to do that. But they'll tell you, aka religions, business, tell you how to do it through them, but not through you. And that's the difference between the real master and the fake gurus. Because the real master will give you the light. Here you go, boom. You do you, now you have the light. But the guru will be like, okay, follow me, you know, and only through me you will know the reality.
That's through fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the guru is dead, what are we going to do without him?
Bob Marley has a track, Babylon System, right? And he talks about the vampires sucking the blood of the sufferer, you know, and this is the system that we exist in. So I mean, it's to come strong. He also has another quote. He said, when one man walking, there's a billion man sparking. And I find that so profound because he looks at everyone as still trying to be their best in sparking. But out of a billion people, only one will be walking the truth. You know? And I found that so amazing.
And I want to close with that. Thank you, Vikas.
Yes.
Thank you, Majid.
Pleasure.
It has been amazing. If this camera, I will change this camera. If this camera was not overheating, we're gonna stay like longer.
Which one's overheating?
This the most expensive
Sony?
one, the Sony. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like the camera have
I think
like
it's the content.
yeah.
Nah.
It's too much. You know, it's like you're dropping like so much energy, but it's amazing. It's amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.